Hello and welcome to our program. This is Youth Views. Tonight we're talking the reality of Horn of Africa. I have a guest from Eritrea, Mr. Mahil Idris. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
As you see, Horn of Africa, there is a lot of wars going on. There's a lot of tension on Eritrea. So we need to talk about all these kind of problems.
And going to the issue of the Horn of Africa, I mean, it's a complicated story. Everybody knows the Horn from, the background in Horn of Africa, especially 1991 it was, or 90s was a real turn, a pivotal point that turned things around. And since then, we had a new country, Eritrea, fresh independent. We had Somalia go into crisis straight away. In the same time Eritrea was independent, Somalia went into crisis. We had Ethiopia with a different government. And in the same Djibouti, there was not that much change. But what happened was later that came, and one hopeful thing that was there is the IGAD that was supposed to be helpful in integrating the region much more. But the conflict that happened between Eritrea and Ethiopia from 98 to 2000, that was a real devastating to the whole region, and it has affected it.
What was the cause of the conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and who caused this problem?
Well, let's not even blame who started it, who done it, or everything. But these two countries had agreed, and they went to a court with international guarantors, the UN, African Union. You've got the USA, UK, and once they went to court, there has been a judgment of the court, and that judgment of the court has not been implemented yet. And since 13 of April 2002, that's when the last deliberation was by the Hague, which had delimited the border and was supposed to be demarcated. But what has been going on since ever is really baffling, and everybody it has complicated the issue more. Because these two countries went to war because they could not talk to each other. And they went to court, and the court had decided what is there and which one is for which, and they had both accepted it's final and binding. But the Ethiopian narrative of having a dialogue before the implementation of the decision of the court has complicated the issue more, because for me, my own view, it doesn't make sense to me to have a talk with Ethiopia before they implement what they have agreed to, because where is the integrity going to be for any bilateral talks or anything that to do with Eritrea and Ethiopia? So the issue could be said, a lot of things could be said about it, but clearly people fought in a border, and that border war, the world intervened, went together for international ruling for it, and it has been given final and binding. They had accepted it. It should make things easier if this is implemented. Then the normalization can easily happen. Don't forget that Eritrea and Ethiopia had a 30-year war in 1991, up to 1991. But after the war, straight away the people came together. It did not break the bondage of the people. So long war, perpetual war from 1961 until 91, 30 years, but still normalization was an easy process. All you had to do is the other government acknowledged the other one, and the people crisscrossed the border. But these talks that Ethiopia has been bringing, that we need to dialogue with Eritrea before the implementation of the border decision, is really funny, because we went to war because we could not talk. So let's implement what the court has ruled, and then we can move forward. Because, for example, the late Prime Minister of Ethiopia has been said, he said that normalization, or the new Prime Minister, he said that normalization should start straight away. I'm happy to go to Asmara, travel to Asmara and talk. That's what he said. So when they saying that, it's quite the paradox is, are they expecting Eritrea to call them, say, come to Asmara, or are they expecting is Eritrea, like, for them to wait for a passport of the prime minister asking a visa to go to Asmara. How are they going to talk? Are they going to call a third person and say, can you make us communicate? It's not going to make sense at all, because one of the main things, if Ethiopians were really willing to talk to Eritrea, one thing that could have been done is IGAD. IGAD is an instrument of the region, and it should be utilized wisely, because the agreement of IGAD between the nations is not to interfere into each other's affairs militarily. And Eritrea in 2007 suspended its membership, which it has a right to. And of course, by suspending that membership, it adhered to the principles of IGAD by not just looking at the invasion of Ethiopia to Somalia, no matter what the reason it was. But after it now, Eritrea has reinstated itself into IGAD. And the Eritrean delegation that is from the African Union in Addis Ababa went to the meeting where the IGAD meeting was happening. So Ethiopian security officials pulled him out of the meeting, closed the door on him. So where are they asking to talk? This is a platform to talk. IGAD is an instrument for the countries of the region to talk. Right. And that need to be looked at seriously. And I think one of the main issues now for a way forward has to be a constructive engagement. And the region has changed as well a lot. The reason Eritrea, why it mentioned that it left, is because of the circumstances that Ethiopia interfering in Somalia. And the reason Eritrea said it's going back is because of the circumstances, that the drought that was in Horn of Africa a couple of years ago, and also the state of South Sudan as a new state in the region. So Eritrea did acknowledge the new reality of the region and had acted towards towards engaging. But this rebuffing of Ethiopia, and in the same time, because this is very hypocritical, because you cannot talk about saying we need to have dialogue with Eritrea, and you cannot shut the dialogue, the door of dialogue, because IGAD could be the best instrument for these people to talk about if they sit down together, the states of the region. Eritrea is going to be there, Ethiopia is going to be there. They're not going to refuse to talk each other. And if they do talk each other, it has to be about objective matters. And I think it's very unfortunate that until today, the whole world has just given a blind eye, because we had guarantors, the UN, without closing this chapter, it opened a new chapter in Eritrea.
Okay. So. And if you are listening this program tonight and you are from Eritrea, we're talking about a lot of the reality of Horn of Africa. There is a lot of wars going around there. In Somalia, there are a lot of occupation. Ethiopians and the Kenyans are occupied last 7 or 8 years. Eritrea was the only country who was hosted the Somali people, the Somali diaspora around the world in 2007. And also, so in Eritrea have provided support for the Somali people and Somali country after 2007. And Eritrea has been sanctioned in 2009, and this sanction was unjust. And Eritrea, the only the crime they committed was, why are you supporting to Somalia? And tell me about the relationship between Somalia and Eritrea had in the past.
I mean, this is I hear a lot of good things that the Somalis have done during the Eritrean Revolution. So all is, I mean, from back home, the only thing that I hear a lot about Eritrea and Somalia is Somalis were there for us during our struggle. So this is something really is installed in the Eritrean psyche to the point of is reality for me to believe on, even though obviously I wasn't in that generation. But the Somali and Eritrean,
how they supported Somali,
I mean, Eritrea,
during the struggle of Eritrea. Many people do not know about this.
Yeah, well, Eritrean is the leaders of the Eritrean Revolution. We're not traveling by any Sudanese or Eritrean or Ethiopian passport. These Eritrean leaders that led the revolution, who were guerrilla fighters in the mountains, rebels, they had the only way they were getting their help is through the state of Somalia, Republic of Somalia, and that had been going on until the Eritrean we succeeded in our revolution. So there is something that we acknowledge as Eritrean, that we acknowledge about the Somalis' effort towards helping the Eritrean societies. But and now what happened now is, because Eritrea does not have a role in what's happening in Somalia at the moment, because the minute we became a nation, a state nation, is the minute that Somalia broke down.
True.
So since then, what has been going in up to 2000, we did not have a central government even that tried to do anything. But from 2000, there was a lot of trials. But for the first time in 2006, we saw in Somalia, there was in Mogadishu, Somalia is going back for 6 months, there was a stable neighborhood. This is for the first time from 91, 2006 was a very important year. As soon as that happened, what we could see in the region is we're supposed to see like effort to help to sustain that peace. But what it was done at that time was it was very sad, because the paranoia came, I would say paranoia came from the late Ethiopian Prime Minister talking about, well, Islamic Courts Union taking over Somalia, now they're going to turn it to Ethiopia, turn everybody to Muslim. So to say something like that is really a joke to a region that has coherently lived very cohesively together in a religious tolerance and everything. So, I mean, whatever the story was, as soon as the Islamic Courts Union, which was now, everybody acknowledges they were very moderate now, but at that time it was unfortunate that nobody paid attention. But as soon as they left, the leaders of the Islamic Courts Union and some Sheikh Sharif, that was the president, most of them, they tried to go to a lot of countries. And this is, I'm talking to you from testimony of people that had traveled from here to support them. And there was no nation that accepted them. The Syrian president, they said to them, you don't want to put me in trouble with the West. They let them back. Gaddafi returned them. Well, the only people that could open a door for them is and appreciate their situation is Eritreans. And we let the door in. They came into Eritrea, and well, the first thing what happened was, like you said, the conference. That conference, you might have been there to it. You might have been there to it, and you've been there, right?
I wasn't, but the next after that, yes.
Yeah, okay. That conference was a lot of people that went there, and they make testimony. Neither Eritrea selected the speaker of the conference. Neither Eritrea selected the secretary for the conference, chairman of the conference. It was Somalis, diaspora, including the leaders that were refugeed by the war. They came together for that conference, and there was no Eritrean interference on it. But obviously, then again, where it came again, that malice paranoia that came again, scared of the way that this can move forward to bring peace in Ethiopia, in Somalia, and the Islamic Courts Union, it was gone, but a new IRS, the Alliance for Rehabilitation of Somalia, came up together, and then instead of it's very funny because Ethiopians put 20,000 soldiers.
60,000. 60,000. They put
at the beginning, though, first the number increased gradually, of course, but when they put it, they were putting it to catch Sheikh Ahmed. Yes, they were hunting him. But it's funny, they went to hunt him, and then from there they brought him and they put him to be a president. So this is very, very sick, because you sent initially, like said, 60,000, but 20,000 soldiers went into Mogadishu and all around the areas, and then bring the same person and put him as a president. So that was just, it was for the Somali youth, it didn't add up, because Sheikh Ahmed, he was fighting Abdullah Yusuf, saying that he has been installed by an external power. And he was fighting him because he was saying this is not put by Somali power. This is being put from an outsider in Somalia, and we're not going to accept it. Absolutely. So Sheikh Ahmed, when he turns out by the same way, what's going to happen to the youth of Somalia? Confused, left there. Some of them, like you said, saying Al-Qaeda, going fanatically, and some of them trying to do their best in different ways. But this is very, it was damaging to break down the conference that was, the effort of that conference that brought in Eritrea. It would have been better to bring these people together, united back in Somalia. But by breaking them down and conquering, it was sick, because Eritrea put an effort, but like you said, you're a witness to it, that everything, that conference was managed by Eritreans, and then finally that conference gave the United Nations a president. So it shouldn't have been looked at as from fear-mongering that Eritrea has got something to do in Somalia. It's nothing like that.
Thank you. As you see, you can call the number on the screen if you want, is 0203 397 2095. We're talking about the reality in Horn of Africa. Somalia had a civil war. After 16 years, the Islamic courts came up and created the peace and stability in Somalia. But the war on terror reached Somalia when the Americans supported Meles, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who has sent more than 60,000 to Somalia to destabilize. And today Somalia had the worst destabilization in Africa. So if you are listening, if you're Somalian and if you're watching this program, we would like to hear from you, and we continue our discussion. After 2006, as you know, Somalia had peace and stability, but the United States supported to Meles, and Meles labeled Somalia as a terrorist group and destroyed what Somalia has been building, you know, as a new government, Islamic courts. And Islamic court has done a great job in Somalia, and they create peace and stability, and all suddenly destroyed. And Al-Shabaab wasn't there at that time, and this terror we have today we didn't have. And you know, Eritrea was blamed and was sanctioned because the United States and European accused Eritrea are supporting to Somalia. And we talked about Eritrea and Somalia they were close friends in terms of the struggle of Eritreans and Somalia. Now they're in trouble. So we two nations really fighting for their lives. But let's talk about the sanctions of Eritrea. Talk about the sanction of Eritrea. Why?
I mean, that's, for an Eritrean, it's easy to understand. It's just saying deja vu, same story happening again. That's how we put it. Because for us, for any integrity of the United Nations, for Eritrean, this is a matter of integrity. To look at the integrity of the United Nations is, before they close a chapter, trying to open a new chapter is a disgrace. Because we had countries that went to war that devastated a lot of population. 1/3 of Eritrean land was run by soldiers, about 500,000 internally displaced. A lot of people, soldiers died in a war, the same side from Ethiopia. This happening, and the United Nations making a closure chapter to it, it was important to make sure that court ruling, it was implemented and implemented to the ground. Now, because what's happening is the guarantors, when Eritrea and Ethiopia signed the agreement, it was for any country that is abides by Chapter 7 of the United Nations, it will be like taken as a measure against that nation. Now, nothing has happened. Nothing really. It just kept to the no peace, no war situation, and it's making a lot of people suffer. And it's very important that the United Nations takes its stance and stands up again and makes sure that, like, you cannot tell Eritrea and Ethiopia need to vacate the land. Like, Eritrea has been given its map, so Ethiopia has been given its map. Everybody just need to stand in their land. After that, what happens is a matter of diplomacy and bringing like diplomats and ambassadors and things like that. But the sanctions for Eritrea is literally either if the Western nations, they didn't really were not sure about the facts that were happening in the ground, and if they were really hated by Meles to go that way straight. Meles, I think he only pushed it for his personal interest. For his personal interest, no matter what his personal interest is. Because what is the sanctions doing to Eritrea? What does it mean? Like, there is hasn't been a proof, like saying, except an opinion. An opinion, you can say it as much as you want. Eritrea has an opinion, a proud opinion, and very assertive. We have the opinion regarding to Somalia. So now, if it's about our opinion should not be said, because it does not fit the status quo, then, well, there's nothing we can do for you. And if you're going to sanction us for that, the only thing that Eritrean people are going to look at is just like, wow, like I said to you, it's happening again. It's nothing we can say about. But for more than the matter of the sanctions, I do believe if the matter of the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia gets sorted out, these sanctions will just disappear in the air.
Absolutely.
At the moment, it's just nothing, because you had the last UN report by the Somali Eritrean Monitoring Group. Security Council nation is asking, blocking it not to be published because of its objectivity, and it's a matter of seriousness there, that even the Somali monitoring group that is putting the Somali government, the provisional government right now that exists, is supposed to be helped by all nations. Remember, Eritrea was, for a lot of reasons, was talked about it at that time, was Eritrea doesn't recognize the TFG, but no country had recognized that. Even the United States. The first government that has been recognized is this provisional government. Nobody has recognized the transitional government. So this provisional government now, its own members of the government are the ones who are being questioned, some of them maliciously, and some of them, for whatever reasons, they trying to put them in SMG. So it really is really a fishy story. But for an Eritrean, really the sanctions doesn't bother me that a lot. What really matters is like this issue between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and especially this occupation of Eritrea, because blatantly now is Ethiopia that's occupying Eritrean land. And once they leave our land, to us it really doesn't matter. Leave us with the Horn of Africa, it doesn't matter the sanctions.
Absolutely. But as a Horn of African people, we need peace and stability, and we need development. We are always at war, and this war created by the dictators in the Horn of Africa. Especially, there are chronic problems in the Horn of Africa created by Meles and his surrounding leaders. How are we going to get out this? Meles is gone, and he's not anymore there. And we need to create harmony as an African, as an Horn of Africa. We can't live in hostile, neighbors. We don't want Eritrean hostile. We don't want Ethiopian or Somalians. We are the only sovereign nation around their area, and nobody cares in terms of Eritrean side or Ethiopian side or Somalian side. Isn't it time we think about our lives, our development, our generations to come, and end these wars among these three countries? And if there's any land dispute, sit together. We don't want to call about to Europeans or the United Nations. Is there any hope there that we can sit together as Ethiopian, Eritrea, and Somalia? And these land disputes, we know the Ethiopians are already occupied the Ugandan side, and Somalia had been fought in 1977. And that was the biggest war in Africa, in the Horn of Africa. And we lost, as a Somalian, over nearly 1 million people. And because Ethiopia always had a support from the Western or Russia or those countries. But as an African, I think isn't it time we get out this mess? We see United Nations doesn't care about Eritrea, doesn't care about Ethiopia, doesn't care about Somalia. Isn't it that the African people to come now and say, look, enough is enough. We don't want anybody to tell what to do now. And from Eritrean side to show regard of peace, and Somalian show the same, and the Ethiopian. And if Ethiopian doesn't work like that, then we should call other Africans and say, look, we can't live like this hostile, and we need to get better life. Because in Europe, there are 28 countries. And if you're passing by one border, you can't even recognize that border. Why we need all the time and lose hundreds of thousands of soldiers from Eritrean side or the Ethiopian side or Somali side, Why we shouldn't live peace among ourselves?
That's a question of the century, But the main thing is we should look at as among us ourselves in the Horn of Africa, example, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, Kenya, Uganda. It's absurd for us to look at each other, the one superior than the other. There is we've looked at an outsider force and we've said they're acting superior to us.
Absolutely.
But now, as acting to each other superior, if an Eritrean is acting superior to an Ethiopian, or an Ethiopian acting superior to an vice versa goes to Somalia, then that is destined to clash.
Absolutely.
Because it's the arrogance will be there. There will be a fight caused by that, and that's been said, and the issue of borders and the geography, that has to. We have an opportunity right now. We have an opportunity in the Horn of Africa, and I think that Ethiopia now, Meles is not there. So we shouldn't even get stuck in a bit in what he done or what he's been through. But the new Ethiopian Prime Minister, he has an advantage. The ball is in his hand. He can really turn things around. True. And easily, by revitalizing IGAD, making sure that IGAD does what it's supposed to do. I mean, if you see the chairmanship of IGAD now is stuck in Addis Ababa. It's supposed to be a rotating chair.
Absolutely.
We're supposed to have ambassadors in Djibouti. Each one is supposed to have an ambassador in Djibouti for an IGAD nations. True. That is not there. So the regional integration, as in IGAD says, Intergovernmental Authority for Development, is not doing the development work it's supposed to do. What it's doing is for war. It's just going accusing the one against the other. A group of couple of nations come in, writing a statement about the other state, defamation and all this. If we're really talking about peace process in the Horn of Africa, like serious note has to be taken about IGAD. And IGAD need to be revitalized. And through that mechanism, these nations can finish things in a table. If you bring if we bring somebody else to do something for it, it's just not wise, and nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to do it. So we need to wake up from this state of war amongst each other, and we need to realize that we're not superior than each other, and that we are one people, because you can find the same tribe in one border and the other side. Sure. It's just an imaginary line that has been drawn on us. So we should not be divided by imaginary lines that far. What we need to do is, obviously today, states leave that we accept the colonial borders, and we have ratified that in African Union Constitution Charter. True. So every nation state at the moment must go with what we have, with what the borders are drawn. We cannot redraw that borders just like in one day. But we can have consensus if we're going to do something. If we're really going to have an African Union, well, if it's really a union, that can be borderless at one point, but
absolutely,
need to be worked a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely. In Europe, there are 28 countries, yes, and there are more than 500,000 population in Europe, and Africa is over 1 billion people, and we are more rich than Europe, but still we are poor. Economy is down. There's many wars going around many countries in Africa. The leaders of Africa is not developing in Africa at all. Majority of the African leaders has got accounts offshores, like the United States or Paris or London. But tell me about Afwerki. Has he got an account in Europe?
Not if I know of, and if it had been, it would have been taken time ago. So I don't think he would have something in here, because he's always in all this. I mean, especially over the last 4 years, 5 years, and we've been in all this as a state in Europe and this. So I mean, all the African nations, if you look at it, putting your money in abroad, putting your stuff abroad, is not going to be your money at the end as well. You're going to be used and thrown. So you must stand to your stance. But
the majority leaders of Africa does.
That means then we have a long process. If our leaders are a reflection of us, and if we're going to do something to our leaders, it has to start from the grassroots level, and for that to work in a sense that will make a difference in the long term, and we have to really take an initiative of running our own affairs. Before we start running our own affairs, and if we do not guarantee an active participation of people in their affairs, then obviously leaders will stay out of touch, take the money, put it abroad. Once a revolution starts, run away, not even get the money. So that is something that African leaders need to wake up for. Even if putting money abroad is not going to guarantee the money is yours. So that's something that African leaders need to wake up to, and also the African people in general, the grassroots level, We cannot make change for next year or year after. We need to think about what's happening in 10 years' time. We need to think in that terms, otherwise there won't be change that comes by an instant.
What about young generations? I mean, Europeans, they don't have a border dispute, and there's no war in Europe, but in Africa, there are a lot of wars going around the people themselves because there are foreign intervention. If African, especially the young generation, to stop listening the foreign interventions, then Africa, it might be revived from this war. Eritrea is one of the leading young generation, as far as I know. I've been in Eritrea almost 3 times, and I've seen the young Eritreans motivated, inspired by their, previous generation. So tell us about what is the standing YPFDJ?
Yes. YPFDJ, and it's about continuity, and it's not about continuity of a political like a political party or something like that. It's about continuity of the Eritrean society. Looking at the Eritrean, everybody has a hand and owns something in the PFDJ. That PFDJ is not a political party created by one person saying these people are my people and we're going to have this and this is our agenda. No, that PFDJ is a product of our of a war that happened for a long time. You said about you seen Eritreans enthusiastic, active, motivated.
Absolutely, because I've been in Eritrea. And the Horn of Africa.
We have something called national service, and that's been going on in Eritrea. A lot of people can be talking negative about it, but for me,
I done myself.
You done yourself, but
yes,
for me, I don't.
In my country, yes.
Look, even though I'm not in a position to judge it, saying this and that, but I can tell you this: who I am to say anything about it. Our fathers done it for more than 20 years, more than 30. Some of them from early 60s, like they could be now. They've been working almost 30 years for no pay. So I cannot. I'm not in that position. So to say like because somebody that done it before and still doing it, I cannot tell them like what's happening. You shouldn't be doing it. But the activation that you talked about, that motivation that you talked about, it needs always a greater mobilization. If we don't mobilize the masses and take an active role in what they're doing every time in their daily lives, then there will be crimes, there will be disorder, there will be mayhem, there will be a lot of things. So the activity in Eritrea and everything, for example, the schooling system in Eritrea. I mean, now if you look at it, the latest, I've checked a report by a university Norwegian university or something, talking about how has broadened it from one university that has only takes 3,500 or students now to where 17,000 people are engaged in higher institution of education. So 5 departments that were in a university broken down to different parts around the country according to their geography and environment that they can suit them for the departments to work. So there is hope in Eritrea. I do believe there is hope, but what we need is a lot of things has changed in Eritrea after the war and because of the war, and that war has affected the whole region, not only Eritrea.
True.
And the world really, if they want to help Eritrea genuinely, they need to make sure they talk. If they want to talk about our internal affairs, they need to talk about what's external affecting us first. You cannot just jump it because there won't be no morality to what you're saying. So if you do talk about the border, if you do talk, make sure that Ethiopia and Eritrea respect each other's integrity and Ethiopia abandons Eritrean land, then I think within Eritrea we can be given a chance for a greater development. But we haven't been tested to the point that where we can, everything is peaceful and then, okay, let's see what the Eritreans do. Because we always had an enemy, always had something to fight against while trying to do something else. So we should be given a chance. The world really need to give us a chance that we can prove, and because there is tolerance in Eritrea, and that need to be over the region.
Absolutely. As far as I know in Eritrea, I mean, the youth is working hard, and they're not only working inside the country, but there is a lot of organizations that are working abroad, United States, Europeans, and there is a lot of conference going on all the time. And this unity is extraordinary in the Eritrean side. So When was the last time you had a conference about YPFDJ?
YPFDJ, yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's been going, it's the oldest youth organization now in Europe. I mean, has been going on for the last 10 years. And you could see it is gradually the number of people, well, I've seen the first conference, people were about 75 people. Now, the latest one, it was in North America about a week, 2 weeks ago, finished it in 1st of September. And it's people coming in thousands, and I mean, 1,000 people in conference, 900 people, 800, always increasing. And there is something unique about it.
What is about these conferences?
There is something unique about it, because, I mean, like, a lot of my friends ask me, it's like, hey, how do you guys come together? I was like, I don't know, it's in a culture. Everybody just comes and makes it happen. And that's something that is a value that we have to make sure we preserve, because we've inherited it from the previous generation. It's not something that we just created by magic, you know. And we need to be careful at looking at this, because we do, amongst ourselves, we like to meet. And we need to keep it to a more, because organizations without institutions, it will not go nowhere. There is no sustainability. And if there is any guarantee for its sustainability, it has to be an institutional mechanism of working. So within YPFDJ as well now, 10 years, is 9 years they've been working hard. So now it is a matter, I think, we need to see a greater coordination effort of institutionalization and matters of, like, for example, I've seen the Horn of Africa Youth gathering a couple of years ago.
True.
Between Somalis, Ethiopians, Djiboutians, Eritreans coming together. So this kind of efforts was born out, as that was done. People in YPFDJ were active in things like that. So, and how did they come together? That's the mystery, because they just happen to come together. For me, I have seen them wherever it is. They have to come together, and there is a value.
What is the number when they gather? What is the number? Is it 1,000?
Last one out was in the UK, was in Birmingham, and that was a European-wide conference. It was about 700 people. There are 700 people there, but none of them know each other. Some of them don't know each other. So when you come there and you see 700 people mixing up in one place together, there is always something good. If
so that means the Eritrean youth are conscious,
yes,
and they want to carry on what their fathers has done in the past.
They're definitely aware of what our fathers done. We're definitely aware of that.
They don't want to lose the independence that they fought for the last 30 years.
No, we're aware of that, because nothing was given in a silver platter. It was something that was earned. So we, as people, especially this new generation, is aware, fully aware of something that was in the previous generation. I mean, don't get me wrong. There could be differences, and as in every society, there was differences. There was a point where Eritreans even killed each other during the civil war in the 80s and stuff like that. So it's not like you know, something like godly that's happening, but it has been an effort, deliberate effort by the people, and that need to be noticed by everyone, because is a good way forward for these youth to make sure they continue.
Let's go back to the sanction on Eritrea. I mean, the government, part of the government, their assets has been frozen, and some of them have been restricted to their travel. So
you know, an asset that's been frozen.
That's what it says. I've read this kind of document.
Yes,
and. How would it affect this, you know, sanction on Eritrea now? Because the sanction means it's like a prison, and it's been in terms of economy, in terms of army. There's a embargo goes around the people. I mean, that's what it means, sanction. So how Eritrea is coping this sanction? Almost, I think, is 4 to 5 years.
I mean, first, like you said, asset freezes.
Frozen, yeah.
Yeah, frozen assets. There is no proof of that. There is no proof. Assets frozen. We haven't seen any proofs of any assets being proven, and I don't think, frozen, and I don't think there exists any assets at all. It doesn't cross my mind there would be an Eritrean asset outside Eritrea. Individuals, but in a level where the higher government officials are here and there, I don't see any of these it's not true. But talking about sanctions, one of the main thing is because we are in a no war, no peace situation, the arms embargo is something very, very, very dangerous because we need the open door to protect ourselves. But don't forget our rich history as well. We was in the mountains, our fathers were already under arms embargo, and they were able to use what they have and get something and use it against the enemy. So the effects of sanctions, I'm confident about it. It's not really, it's marginal. It's really marginal. But the effect of Ethiopian occupation, that need to be finished. That need to be done. Something need to be done about that. And Ethiopians need to realize for any normalization that need to be fixed up. They have to leave Eritrean land. They cannot stand in our land and keep talking about our affairs. It doesn't add up. But with the sanctions, embargo, arms embargo, I don't know how our fathers got it during the revolution time. So I cannot be, I wouldn't be that naive to think that they're not capable or we're not capable of getting this again in any means or measure. So there is no, obviously there's no economic sanctions on us. There are people who invest in Eritrea. There is, but it is fear-mongering, and these sanctions is not helpful. Simple as that. It's not helpful. And I could have thought of it, at least if the UN had pressed on the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia and the occupation, and then spoke about the sanctions. Then could have made a little bit of sense for me. But it just don't make sense before you close one chapter, opening another chapter, and deliberately leaving that chapter. So for an Eritrean, maybe outsiders will be scared that, oh, there is sanctions in Eritrea. But for an Eritrean, every Eritrean knows it, that since when we've been sanctioned, I don't know, however, how long, but I know it's more than 20 years or more than 50. Since the 40s, 30s, 60s, 70s. There was never been, always, we've been underground. We've been the underdogs in things that we do. Now, ultimately, we're standing up, and a nation, one generation. We've got a generation born under the banner of independence, and that's the most important generation. We need to take care of this generation. It's not a generation that knows Arab people or Ethiopian people, or not a generation with identity crisis. This is a generation with an Eritrean mind. So something that we really need to preserve, you know. And these sanctions, as long as the community continues, the generations continue, sanctions, I mean, they're on paper, man.
Okay, what is your, we are very close to the end of the program. What message do you want to send to your fellow Eritreans and Ethiopians and, you know, the Somalians? Because we locked up this cycle of war, division, tribalism, regionalism, power-mongering. How are we going to end this cycle of poverty? How can we end this cycle of war, hatred? And in Europe, you see, they live side by side in peace. And that's what's the importance about.
I think we're tired of it. Already we are tired of these problems. And we're tired of it. We really, like, we suffered a lot. So what is that now for all of us, we need to realize, like I said to you earlier, nobody is superior than the other.
True.
So if we have that and understand that, and we cannot be like pressing on our terms in the other. We need to be able to listen to each other. We need to be able to conversate, and we need to be able to make sure that that common understanding amongst us is there. Unless if we just gonna, like, everyone is gonna say in my way, then that's the highway. Everybody's gonna take their own ways, which is not going to really make a difference in the region. But since we are one community, like you find a Cushitic in Somalia and a Cushitic in Eritrea, you find in Ethiopia, you find the same here, there, same tribes, languages in here and there. We need to wake up and we need to mature. And by waking up, and I mean is exactly, we don't need to defame each other. We don't need to say everybody has a bad and good. And we need to focus in the good of our region, because that region has been a lot of defamation. Nobody knows any good thing about that region. We need to really wake up that region, and the only way we could do that is by us.
What we can do, is there any any message do you want to send to the leaders? They are responsible for what we've seen at the Eritrea side, or
Definitely.
Ethiopia or Somalia. We need a strong leaders who protect their people, to honor their people, create better environment as the European, they live side by side, and that is what important for us. But when the African leaders disrespect each other or show superiority or working with the foreigners, and that causes a lot of havoc and wars like Ethiopians, Somalia, Eritreans. We're losing our people every day. The younger generation are suffering. So we need to end that. We need to end that. Thank you, Mahir, for coming.
Thank you for having me. That was cool to have you.
We would like to have you again.
Sure, definitely.
And we continue this program. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If you're watching tonight, we were talking about the reality of Horn of Africa. There are many problems, but the biggest problem is the fighting between the Africans themselves. Europeans, they live side by side in peace, and they developing every year. They have nuclear weapons, they have aeroplanes, their kids go to school. We don't have all these kind of things. We need to understand that life is not about shooting each other or killing each other or occupying one another's land. It's about harmony. We need Africa, especially the younger generation, to wake up and to understand Eritreans, Ethiopians, Somalians, the Kenyans, and Djiboutians, to understand that life is not a gun point or AK-47. I hope we will continue this kind of discussion, and I'm very thank you. I want to thank to you and to the Eritrean people who's going to watch it tonight, and to the Somalian. Before I say goodbye, we will continue discussion, inshallah, for the next coming programs. And we need to talk about this kind of program, because I like to live in peace, stability, and unity in the Horn of Africa. So, see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
That is the end of our program. Inshallah, before we see you next time, I'll leave you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.